Okay, so we are going to do a tutorial on the Basic Becca Balaclava. To be able to knit this with me, you need to be comfortable doing knit stitches, purl stitches, and you also need to be able to see your stitches in your project to work with different types of techniques. Everything else I'm going to show you, so let's get into it. Okay, so we're going to start by casting on for the bottom edge. We're going to do a ribbing up until here. Then we're going to start knitting flat, but we're going to bind off these stitches in the front to create the opening for the face. Then we're going to decrease some stitches here. And we're going to continue flat back and forth until we are at the back of the head. Then we're going to do some decreases here to round off the top, and then we're going to do this, shape this part. When we're finished with that, we're going to pick up stitches all around the front edge and make the hem for the cord. I'm going to make the cord and insert it into the band. Okay, so I'm using Cozy yarn. It's a merino alpaca blend. It's super soft and comfortable. I'm also using these bamboo needles from Tulip. So to cast on, we're going to do an Italian cast on. That is a knit one, purl one cast on that's super suitable for a ribbing. You don't have to do this type of cast on. If you find it super complicated, you can just do a normal one, but I'm going to show you how to do the Italian one. So I do it, I assume that you know how to cast on a long tail now. I want you to hold the yarn as if you were to do a long tail cast on, but without the slip knot. So you're just holding the yarn. You need a long tail. But instead of using the slip knot to start, you just insert your needle from the left towards the right and twist. So this is actually the first stitch. This is a knit stitch, and you can see that because it doesn't have a purl bump. So we're now just going to do, I'm just going to remove this extra yarn so it doesn't get confusing. So to do the purl stitch, you can kind of think of how you do purl. So when you purl, you go in from the back, you go under both strands, and you grab the first one and pull it through to the other side. So now I have a purl stitch. So you can clearly see that it's a purl bump over this stitch. Okay. The next knit stitch and all the other knit stitches are made by going from the front, under the first strand, over the next, and you're pulling it back through. So now you can see that you have a knit stitch. Okay, I'm going to show you again the purl stitch from the back towards the front, under both strands, and pull the front one backwards. Go under the first, over the next, and pull it through. So purl stitch are under both, going up and pulling the front strand under the back and through. For knit stitches, you go under the first, over the next, and pull it through. So I'm going to make all my stitches now, and when I have made all the stitches, we're going to do a couple of rows of double knitting to neaten up the edge, And this also makes it super, super easy to join in the round without twisting the work and to see how to do it. So I'll just make the stitches and I'll see you when I'm finished. Okay, so I've done all my stitches, and instead of joining in the round right away, I'm going to turn my work and I'm going to start doing a round of double knitting. So to do the double knitting, we're going to knit all the knit stitches and slip all the purl stitches with your yarn in front. So I'm knitting one stitch, bringing my yarn to the front and slipping the next stitch. So the reason I'm doing this is that it's going to give you a much neater edge. It's going to tighten up the first stitches, the first row, so that it doesn't look like loose or floppy. It's just going to be super, super neat and tight. And also this first row of stitches will make it so much easier to join in the round without twisting the stitches. And slipping the last stitch, and I'm going to turn my work again, and I'm going to do the same thing on the way back. So this was a purl stitch on the other side and it was slipped, so I'm now going to knit that. And this next stitch was a knit stitch on the other side, so it's now a purl stitch, and I'm going to slip that with the yarn in front. So I'm doing the exact same thing on this side. I'm going to do the full row and I'm going to show you how the edge turns out. So I'm continuing slipping the purl stitches, knitting the knit stitches until the end of this row, and then I'm going to show you how to join in the round and start knitting the ribbing. I'm approaching the end of the second row of double knitting, and as you can see, I have a little edge here. It's super, super tight and neat, but it's not like, it's still going to be elastic. It's just not sloppy. The next reason that you want to do this double knitting is, as you can see now, I have this first row sitting here, and it's going to make it super easy to align all the stitches so that, as you can see here, it's twisted and it's super easy to see that it's twisted. So you just need to align all the stitches so that the start of the knitting is facing the same way. I like to have it inside the loop so that you can see now that all the stitches are aligned. When you do an Italian cast on, if you don't do the double knitting, it's really hard to see if the stitches are twisted, and they always twist. So when we just join in the round now and start knitting, there's going to be a tiny, tiny gap here, but then you have your tail to fix that. So we're not turning the work now, we're just starting to knit. To join, we just start knitting the first stitch. So now we're going to do a regular knit one, purl one, rib. And we're going to do that for as long as it's stated in the pattern. I'm going to put a stitch marker here. I forgot to do that. Let me grab it. So I'm doing that at the beginning of the round. I'm putting it on the actual needles. So when I get to it, I know this is the beginning of the round. Okay, so I'm finishing up my ribbing and approaching the center back. So the stitch marker at the beginning of the round is marking the center back now. I'm just removing this for now. And what I'm going to do now is knit and bind off stitches for the face opening and then start decreasing. So also I'm going to change now into my bigger needles. So I'm grabbing those, and the way I change is I just start knitting with the newer needle. So I'm going to knit 36 stitches, 1, 2, and 36. So now I'm going to bind off completely the next 12 stitches, and this will become the face opening. So to bind off this stitch, I need to knit 2 stitches, and then I'll bind off the first one. So 1, 2, 11, and this is the last stitch that I'm going to bind off, but I need to knit the next stitch in order to bind it off. So now I have the same amount of stitches, including this one, on the other side as I knitted on the first side. So I'm just going to knit until the end of the round. And there I am at the end of the round. And now I can remove this smaller needle completely, because this is not going to be used anymore until the next ribbing part, which is the edge around the face. So just put this aside and continue with the larger, thicker needle. Okay, so this is now the center back. I can put this back on, and we're now going to do decreases to round off the opening of the face opening. So we're going to decrease stitches here. We're going to do it row by row. I'm going to knit until the end of the row, or until I'm back at the face opening. Okay, so I'm at the very last stitch, and now I'm going to turn my work. So we're going to continue back and forth, flat knitting, and I'm going to start binding off these stitches, but I do it one row at a time. So to bind off the first stitch, I'm actually just pulling this one off, and then I'll purl my next stitch, and I'll bind this one off. This will give us a rounded edge around the face. I'm going to purl until the other side of the face opening, and I'm going to bind off stitches there too. I'm purling all the way to the end of the row, and then I'll turn my work again. So now I'll knit from the right side, and I'll just do exactly the same there. I'll just slip this first stitch, knit 1 stitch, and bind off the first stitch. So this is how you do it. I'm going to show you one more time just to show you how things are starting to form. So I'll knit all the way to the other side. I'm knitting until the end of it. And now I'm going to purl from the wrong side. So I'll repeat what I did. I'll just slip the first stitch, purl the next, and bind off the first one. I'll do it again from the knit side, turning my work. I'm going to bind off another stitch on this side. So just slipping and binding it off. So we're going to do this 5 times in each side. So I've done 2 now in this side, and I'm going to do 3 more. I've done 2 on this side, and I'm going to do 3 more. Okay, so I've done all my decreases now. I've done 5 in this side and 5 here. And you can see now that the decreases, the bind off stitches is forming a nice corner. It doesn't look very round at the moment, but we're going to pick up stitches around all the edge later, and they're going to form the chin part of the face opening. So I'm just going to continue knitting now, back and forth over all the stitches, like you knit flat until the length stated in the pattern, and then we're going to start doing the top part. Okay, so I'm back now after doing all the lengths on the balaclava. I'm on my very last row before I'll do some decreases to give the balaclava a rounded shape in the back. So I'm just knitting this purling this last row, and then I'll turn the work and start decreasing. So I'll start decreasing on the right side row. I'm going to knit until 10 stitches before the marker. So I'm going to knit until here, then do a decrease. I'm going to knit 8 stitches past and do another decrease, and I'm going to continue doing that for, I think, 4 times. So I'll just show the 2 rows that I'm doing. So I'm starting by knitting until 10 stitches is left before the marker. So I'm at this point, 5, 10, and I'm going to do a knit 2 together. So I'm knitting my way 8 stitches past the marker, 8, and then I'll do a slip, slip, knit on this side. So slip, slip, and knit those 2 stitches together through the back loop. Okay, so I'm just going to knit until the end of the row, purl back, and then repeat the decrease row the stated number of times. So row 2 is just purl all the stitches. Okay, so I've done 4 decreases in each side now, and I'm going to continue knitting over these 18 stitches. I'm going to work them flat back and forth. I'm going to add 1 stitch from each side every time I get to that side to decrease all the stitches in each side. The pattern tells you to do the same decrease 1 more time. So you knit until 10 stitches is left before the marker. So at this point it's easy to see where the decrease will be done. So I'm here and I'm knitting 2 stitches together. I'm continuing 8 stitches past the marker, and I'm doing the slip, slip, knit. So now to knit over those 18 stitches, I'm going to turn my work right after doing the slip, slip, knit. I'm turning my work, and I'm going to slip 1 stitch and purl 16 stitches. At this point, you can abandon the stitch marker in the back. 16. And I'm going to do a purl 2 together. And then turn my work. On the right side, I'm doing a slip 1 stitch, knit 16 stitches. So now you don't really need to count because you will knit until you have the very last stitch that was involved in the decrease. And then you're going to knit this stitch together with this stitch. We're doing a slip, slip, and knit. Turn the work again. Slip 1 stitch, purl 16 stitches, and you can count, but you don't have to because you're just purling until the very last stitch that was involved in the previous decrease, and then you're going to close the gap between that stitch and the next by purling the 2 together. Turn the work. And so we're just continuing doing that. So we're knitting flat back and forth over those stitches while decreasing in each side until we don't have any stitches left on these sides of the row. Only the stitches in the middle are left when we're finished with all the decreases. Okay, so I have finished my decreases in each side. So I now have my 18 stitches on the needle, and I'm going to start picking up stitches around the face opening to make the edge, the rib edge. So I'm pulling this needle just out of the way because I'm going to use the smaller needle now. This is the same needle that I used for the ribbing at the bottom, so I'm grabbing that again, but I'm working with my working yarn. So I'm going to just pull it out like this so that you can see the stitches more clearly. So I'm not going to pick up in these openings. I'm going to go further in so that it's easier to pick up also in between the stitches, because I'm going to have to pick up in the actual stitches, but I'm also going to pick up in between. So every third stitch, about every third stitch, I'm going to do an extra stitch in between to get enough spaces to pick up stitches. So I'm starting here and I'm picking up my first stitch. I'm going into the next stitch and I'm picking up a stitch. So for the next stitch now, I'm going to go in between this stitch and this stitch. So I'm going in there and picking up. I'm continuing in the next stitch and the next, and I'm going in between to make room for all the stitches that I need. I'm going to go in the next stitch, in the next, and in between. So we're going to have 34 stitches all together. So you just got to keep count and adjusting how many times you pick up in between to get the 34 stitches. And 34. So now I'm going to place a stitch marker And I'm going to do 15 stitches along this edge. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. So I need to go on each side of the knit rows and in every stitch from there. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I have 15 stitches on the bottom edge. I'm going to place another marker and do 34 stitches up along the other side. 34. So I'm just distributing the stitches as evenly as possible. You might have to do this. I mean, you might have to go back and just redistribute, but make sure you have 34 stitches in between this stitch marker and the last stitch before the stitch you have already on the needle. So I'm placing my 4th stitch marker there. And then I'm going to start knitting a ribbing. So I'm going to do knit 1, purl 1, knit 1, purl 1. And I'm going to decrease just 1 stitch. I'm just doing it here. You can just do it. And then by knitting 2 stitches together and then continuing in a knit 1, purl 1. I'm just doing this one time at the top to get odd number of stitches in between the 2 last stitch markers. So now I have 17 stitches in between stitch marker 4 and stitch marker 1. And this is my last stitch that was waiting, so I'm just abandoning this other needle now, and I'm putting my stitch marker on the needle. So now I have 17 stitches here. I have 34 on each side and 15 at the bottom. So now I'm just going to continue doing knit 1, purl 1, rib. So the reason that I'm so particular about the amount of stitches is that when I get here, I want to end with a knit stitch because I want this, I want this first stitch to be a purl stitch so that I get a continuous type of stitches here. So this is not super important, but I think it's nice that it looks, that it doesn't break the rib at the bottom. So now you're just going to do a few rounds of ribbing, and then we'll make the eyelets for the cord. And we're going to make the eyelets here. But first we're going to do a couple of rounds. So just do those and I'll see you when it's time to make the eyelets. Okay, so I'm doing the full rounds of ribbing, and then I'm knitting my way across the side until I am at stitch marker number 2. So this is the first one, and then I'm knitting down to this one. Okay, so I'm doing the last stitches before the second stitch marker, and I'm going to make the eyelets now. Okay, so I'm doing 5 stitches in the established ribbing. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I'm doing, to make the eyelet, I'm doing a slip slip knit. I'm doing a yarn over and I knit 1. I'm doing another yarn over and I knit 2 stitches together. Then I can just continue my ribbing, and I'll just work another round in ribbing so that you can see how the eyelets turn out on the next row. So I'm back at the bottom and I'm continuing my ribbing. So these are the first 5 stitches. I'm doing the knit stitch, I'm purling the yarn over, knit stitch, purling the yarn over, and I'll do a couple more stitches and then you will see how the 2 eyelets turned out. So there they are. So we're going to do a cord and insert into the loop, into the front edge. So now I'm just going to continue knitting, knit 1, purl 1, rib until this front edge is long enough to be folded over and attached to the inside. I've done my ribbing and I'm ready to fold it in and attach it to the inside of the hood. So I'm going to fold it over like this and bind off and attach it at the same time. So I am at the first stitch marker, can remove it now. So I'm ready. I have removed my stitch marker and I'm going to start binding off. I'm going to attach this edge, these stitches to the inside edge at the corresponding stitch. So I'll start with the first stitch. I'm going to follow this row of stitches down and I'm going to find this corresponding stitch, put it onto my needle, and I'm going to knit 2 stitches together. I'll just knit the next stitch and bind off the first. Again, I'm turning my work and I'm following this row down to the corresponding stitch at the edge. I'm lifting that up onto my needle and I'm knitting those 2 together, binding off the previously knitted stitch. I knit 1 stitch. I only attach half of the stitches down to the edge because I find it easier to just follow the knit ladders instead of trying to follow both, and it's sufficient. So I'll bind off this. Next stitch is a purl stitch, so I'll follow the knit row on the inside to the corresponding stitch, lifting that up to the needle and knitting the 2 stitches together, always binding off the previous stitch. So there you go. We just do that all the way around. So the ones that are knit stitches, I just knit them and bind off. The ones that are purl stitches, I go down to the edge, lift the stitch up onto the needle and knit it together with the purl stitch before binding off. Okay, I'll just go all the way around, and when we get to the 4th stitch marker, I'm going to show you how to do it on the inside of the hood when there's no edge to pick up stitches in. Okay, so I'm approaching the last stitch marker now, and so now I'm removing this. After knitting this stitch, you will see that if you follow the row down, you won't end up in a knit stitch. You will just end up in a purl bump. So I'm using that purl bump instead as my new stitch. So I'm following this one down to this purl bump, and then I'm using that to knit the stitch together with. So I'm doing that, binding off this, knitting 1, binding it off. So when you get to the end and are finished with all the stitches, just weave in the ends and I'll try to show you how to make the cord, the twisted cord. Okay, see you. Okay, so I'll try to show you how to make a twisted cord. I'm doing this in a really small scale, just so that you will see how to do it. So I use 2 strands held together, and then I'm twisting them like this. So I'm making a twist. So what I usually do is I attach this part to something like a doorknob or something that I can slide it off of again. And then I just use my hands to twist the other side so that you get a lot of tension in the twist. So when you've done that, you will see that it will start to twist again if you give it some slack. And then when you double it like this and you hold it tight and then you let go, and it will be this beautiful twisted cord. So you need to have 4 times the length of the cord that you are making. So if your cord is going to be 40 inches, you need to have 160 inches. Then fold it in half, twist it, and fold it in half again to make this twisted cord. Okay, so I'm back with my cord now, and I'm going to show you how I do to secure it. So it's folded, but I have all the open ends here. So what I do is I just tie a knot at this end, and then I'll cut this yarn, and I'll cut this part off so that I get a cute little fringe. So the other end is closed, and after threading it through the hem, I'll do the same there. I'll just tie a little knot and then open this up to get this cute little tassel at the end.